The bedroom was quiet, the soft hum of the air conditioner mixing with the rhythmic sound of Han Do-jun's breathing. I stood by the bed, adjusting the blankets around him. 5 years of marriage, and I still made sure he was comfortable, even if he slept through half of our lives together. That night, I leaned down to tuck the sheet under his shoulder and heard it. Words clear, deliberate, impossible to ignore. "Minna, just wait until Yuri transfers the deed to the house, then we can finally be together," he murmured in his sleep. My fingers froze mid-motion. My heart thumped violently, an icy hand gripping my chest. Did I hear that right? My 5 years of devotion, the late nights, the sacrifices, the unwavering support, all for a lie? I backed away slowly, gripping the edge of the dresser for support. "No, this can't be real," I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. My legs felt like jelly, and my chest tightened with a panic that clawed at me. I watched him, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his words had just shattered the foundation of my life. I wanted to scream, to shake him awake, to demand answers. But part of me was too stunned to move. My body felt like it was betraying me, collapsing under the weight of disbelief. I sank onto the edge of the bed, trying to process the words. A real estate scam? He's been planning this? Using me all this time? My fingers clenched the sheet in my lap. I felt hollow, like a shell of the woman I used to be. A knock on the door startled me. "Yuri?" It was the soft, familiar voice of Min-Kyu, my childhood friend. He had always been a quiet presence in my life, a gentle shadow I hadn't realized I needed. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to steady my voice. I need to talk," I said, trembling. Minutes later, Min-Kyu sat across from me in the living room, his brow furrowed, eyes filled with concern. "What happened?" he asked gently. I couldn't bring myself to look at him directly. "It's Do-jun," I whispered. I heard him last night." My hands shook as I relived the words. He's been planning with Minna. The house, everything, he never loved me." Min-Kyu's expression darkened, a mixture of anger and protectiveness flashing across his face. He leaned forward, gripping my hands in his. "Yuri, I've waited so long for you to see him for what he really is," he said, his voice firm, unwavering. "You don't have to face this alone." Tears blurred my vision, hot and unrelenting. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "I feel dead inside." "You're not dead," he said softly, cupping my cheek. "You're about to rise. And I'll be right here, every step of the way." His touch was electric, grounding me, reminding me that I wasn't powerless. That night, I realized I had a choice: crumble beneath the weight of betrayal or rise, stronger than ever, with someone who truly cared. I looked into his eyes, seeing the unwavering devotion there, and felt a spark of something I hadn't allowed myself in years: hope, trust, and desire. "You really mean that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Every word," he said, leaning closer, his thumb brushing my cheek. "I've loved you since high school, and I'll never let him hurt you again." In that moment, I felt the first stirrings of a rebirth. I wasn't the naive, obedient wife anymore. I was a woman who could reclaim her life, her home, and her heart. And with Min-Kyu by my side, I knew that the fire of revenge and the warmth of love would burn brighter than any betrayal could ever dim. The morning sunlight spilled through the curtains, but it did little to warm the chill still lodged in my chest. I barely slept, haunted by the words I had overheard. "Just wait until Yuri transfers the deed, then we can finally be together." Every repetition of them felt like a blade twisting in my heart. Min-Kyu had stayed the night, refusing to leave my side, and now he sat across from me at the small kitchen table, hands wrapped around his coffee mug, watching me with an intensity that both frightened and comforted me. "You have to stop blaming yourself," he said softly. "None of this is your fault. He's the one who's been lying, manipulating, and taking advantage of your trust." I clenched my hands in my lap. "It feels humiliating," I admitted. "All these years, thinking I was building a life together, and it was just a transaction." My voice cracked. "I don't even know how to face him." "You won't have to face him alone," Min-Kyu said, reaching across the table to cover my hand with his. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me, one that was no longer of fear, but something far more intimate. We'll make sure he can't hurt you again. I promise. I looked up into his eyes and saw something I hadn't allowed myself to see in years: unwavering devotion, silent love, and a fierce determination that matched my own. My heart, which had been hollowed by betrayal, felt a spark of life again. You really mean that? I asked, voice trembling. Every word, he said, a small, confident smile tugging at his lips. I've loved you since we were kids, Yuri. And now, I'm finally getting the chance to show you. The thought made my chest ache with both longing and relief. I had spent years living with a man who treated me like a pawn. And now, here was someone who had cherished me quietly, unwaveringly, ready to fight by my side. We need a plan, I said, squaring my shoulders. Do-jun can't be allowed to touch a single asset or property. I want him stripped clean before he even knows what's coming. Min-Kyu's gaze hardened. I've been preparing for this. I've hired a private investigator, someone I trust completely. We'll find every offshore account, every secret investment. By the time Do-jun realizes, he'll be completely exposed. I felt a rush of empowerment I hadn't known in years. The helpless, naive housewife was gone. In her place was a woman burning with clarity, purpose, and the desire for justice. And alongside me, Min-Kyu's presence was like armor, protective, steady, and unexpectedly comforting. He hesitated for a moment, then let his hand linger on mine. Yuri, I don't just want to protect you from him, he said softly. I want to be the one who makes you feel safe and, maybe, even happy again. The warmth of his words spread through me like sunlight. I felt my lips curve into a faint smile. You always know the right thing to say, I whispered, squeezing his hand gently. And I'll keep saying it, he said, leaning just a fraction closer, enough for our arms to brush. The subtle contact sent a thrill through me, a reminder that love could be tender, slow, and real, not transactional like what I'd suffered. That morning, as we pored over lists, bank statements, and plans, I realized that the fire of revenge and the stirrings of romance could coexist. With Min-Kyu by my side, I wouldn't just take back what was mine. I might even discover a love stronger than anything I had ever imagined. By the time the sun was high in the sky, we had a strategy, a sense of purpose, and a quiet intimacy growing between us. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, and maybe, finally, letting someone love me the way I deserved. The house felt different that morning, almost sinister, as if the walls themselves were whispering reminders of Do-jun's betrayal. Every corner held memories of a life I had believed in, and now, each memory felt like a trap. I moved quietly, as if I could avoid the shadows, but they were everywhere. Min-Kyu had been by my side since dawn, reviewing documents, going through the bank statements I had saved for emergencies. I watched him, mesmerized by his focus and determination. He had always been steady, unwavering, a stark contrast to the man who had shattered my trust. You're tense, he said softly, breaking my thoughts. His hand brushed mine as he slid a folder toward me. The contact was brief, but it sent a shiver up my spine. I can't stop thinking about him, I admitted, voice tight. All those years. I thought I knew him. And now, my words faltered. You knew him, Min-Kyu said gently. But that man isn't the one who deserved your trust. You are seeing him for what he really is, and that's enough. That's more than enough to move forward. I met his eyes, and for a moment, the fear and heartbreak softened. The warmth in his gaze was comforting, almost intoxicating. And you're really going to help me with this? Of course, he said, leaning closer. You don't have to do a thing alone, Yuri. I've been waiting for this moment, to stand by you and to show you what love that isn't selfish looks like. My chest tightened, but this time with a mix of anticipation and something else, a fluttering thrill I hadn't felt in years. I couldn't deny that the proximity of his body, the gentle brush of our arms as we sorted through papers, ignited something inside me. I want to start with the house deed, I said, trying to focus on the plan. If he transfers it or manipulates the documents, we'll lose everything before we can act. Min-Kyu nodded. Leave that to me. I've already spoken to a legal team. Everything he's done will be traced. And if he tries anything, I'll be there. His thumb brushed my hand again, casual yet intimate, sending a small thrill through me. I caught myself smiling at him. You're serious about this, I said, a hint of amusement in my voice. He smirked. I've been serious about you since high school. You think 5 years of patience doesn't make a man determined. My stomach flipped. He was teasing, but it wasn't cruel. It was familiar, warm, and inviting. You've always had that stubborn streak, I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. And you've always underestimated it, he replied, leaning just a little closer. The warmth of his presence was comforting, almost overwhelming. But I think you're finally seeing it and maybe enjoying it. I let out a nervous laugh, my hands brushing against his again as I shuffled through papers. The contact lingered longer than necessary, and I could feel the tension building between us. His gaze was steady, attentive, and something more intimate that made my heartbeat race. We worked for hours, piecing together financial trails, discovering hints of hidden accounts and transactions. With each revelation, I felt my resolve solidify. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. And Min-Kyu, ever present, ever supportive, was becoming more than just an ally. By the evening, our heads leaned close over the documents, our shoulders touching, and I realized that the warmth spreading through me wasn't just from triumph, it was from him. From the boy who had loved me all along, now standing at my side, offering protection, strategy, and a growing intimacy I couldn't ignore. That night, as I closed the folders and stretched, Min-Kyu's hand found mine again. You know, he said quietly, voice almost a whisper, revenge might be sweet, but I think what comes after could be even sweeter. I met his eyes, feeling my lips curve into a small, hopeful smile. I think I'm ready to find out. And for the first time since the betrayal, I believed that love and justice could coexist, and that the boy who had always loved me might finally become the man I could trust with my heart. The morning light had barely touched the skyline when Min-Kyu arrived at my apartment. His presence, as always, was steady, a calm I desperately needed after the storm that had been Do-jun's betrayal. He carried a laptop bag and a folder of documents, the quiet determination in his eyes igniting a resolve in me I hadn't felt since discovering the truth. Ready? He asked, leaning against the doorway with that familiar smirk that made my heart skip a beat. I swallowed, nodding. I think I'm ready to see how deep his lies go. Min-Kyu set down his bag and pulled out the laptop, connecting it to a secure server he had arranged. We start with the offshore accounts. Every transaction, every unusual transfer, it's all going to be traced. His fingers moved with precision, and I found myself watching him more than the screen. There was a quiet strength in him, a patience and intelligence that made my chest ache in ways I hadn't allowed myself in years. Min-Kyu, I started, hesitating as my gaze met his. I don't know what I'd do without you. He paused, looking up at me, his hand brushing mine as he reached across the desk. You won't ever have to find out, he said softly, the warmth in his eyes melting the last of my fear. I'm not going anywhere. The touch lingered, sending a thrill through me. I felt a flush rise to my cheeks, and my pulse quickened. We were so close, our shoulders brushing, the faint scent of his cologne filling the space between us. For a moment, the world narrowed down to just us, a cocoon of strategy, trust, and something dangerously intimate. I tore my eyes away from him, forcing myself to focus on the task. Do you think he suspects anything? I asked, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. Min-Kyu's gaze returned to the screen, sharp and calculating. Do-jun isn't smart enough to see this coming. He's been counting on complacency. That's why we're steps ahead. By the time he realizes, it'll be too late. Hours passed as we sifted through accounts, tracing patterns, and uncovering hidden transfers. Each discovery fueled a fire in me. The house deed, secret investments, offshore accounts. Every lie he had told, every manipulation, was exposed layer by layer. At one point, Min-Kyu leaned over me to point at a document, and our faces were inches apart. I felt the warmth of his breath, the subtle brush of his chest against mine. My pulse raced, but I couldn't deny the comfort, the thrill, the intimacy of having someone who truly understood and supported me. "Yuri," he said softly, voice low, "you're stronger than you realize. All of this, it doesn't define you. You define it." I swallowed hard, feeling a lump in my throat. "And you're here because you care?" My voice was almost a whisper. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made my stomach flutter. "I've always cared. And now, I get to show you." I felt my lips curve into a small, unsteady smile. The way he looked at me, with that quiet devotion and subtle desire, ignited something long dormant inside me. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, it had all led me to this moment, standing beside someone who would fight for me, love me, and hold me closer than anyone ever had. By evening, we had mapped out every financial move, every account, and a strategy to strike when the time was right. The tension between us had grown, subtle touches, lingering looks, and unspoken promises threading through our collaboration. I realized that my rebirth wasn't just about revenge. It was also about discovering the love I deserved. As Min-Kyu packed up his things to leave, he paused, hand lingering over mine. "We'll finish this, Yuri," he whispered, his thumb brushing my skin. "And after, I hope you'll let me be more than just your partner in revenge." I felt my heart swell, a mixture of anticipation and longing. "I think I'd like that," I admitted, my voice soft. He smiled, leaning in just slightly, close enough for our breaths to mingle. "Good. Because I've been waiting a long time for this." As I watched him leave, my pulse still racing, I realized that the path ahead was no longer just about reclaiming what was mine. It was about embracing love, intimacy, and trust, the kind of love I had never dared to hope for until now. The city lights shimmered against the glass windows of my apartment as Min-Kyu and I reviewed our final plan. Every detail mattered. Do-jun had underestimated me, underestimated us, and now it was time to tip the scales. But as much as I wanted justice, I couldn't ignore the magnetic pull I felt toward Min-Kyu. Every touch, every lingering look, stirred feelings I had buried deep during years of betrayal. "Yuri," Min-Kyu said, leaning over the laptop, "this is it. We freeze his accounts tomorrow. Once the assets are secured, he won't be able to touch a single thing. Not the house, not a dime." I nodded, biting my lip. I can't believe it after all these years. It's finally happening. He won't get away with it. Min-Kyu's gaze met mine, intense and unwavering. His hand brushed against mine as he pointed to the screen. The touch lingered, warm and grounding, and I felt my pulse spike. "You've changed," he murmured softly, almost teasingly. "Stronger, sharper, even more beautiful than before." I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Careful, Min-Kyu," I said, trying to focus on the laptop but failing miserably as his thumb gently traced my knuckles. "We're supposed to be planning his downfall, not whatever this is." He leaned a fraction closer, his breath brushing my ear. "This is part of it," he whispered. "Protecting you, being close to you, it's all part of the plan." I swallowed, heart hammering. The line between revenge and desire blurred in that moment. I had spent years feeling powerless, but now, beside Min-Kyu, I felt unstoppable and dangerously alive. The next day, we moved swiftly. Legal notices were delivered, accounts frozen, and the investigation we had painstakingly built was ready to be presented. Every move we made was precise, surgical, leaving Do-jun no room to maneuver. And yet, through it all, Min-Kyu never let me face a single moment alone. His hand on the small of my back as we walked into the bank, his protective arm brushing mine in the office. Each gesture was a reminder that I was no longer vulnerable. At one point, he leaned in close to whisper, "Yuri, you're incredible. Watching you handle this, it makes me love you even more." I caught his gaze, my breath hitching. You always know how to say the right thing, I replied, voice soft, heart racing. He smirked, eyes twinkling. And you always make me want to say it. When the final confrontation came, Doo-jun stormed into the office, arrogance dripping from every word. What is this? He demanded, eyes narrowing as he saw the documents and the legal team surrounding us. I looked at him, my voice steady, controlled. This is what happens when you betray someone who trusted you with everything. You underestimated me and him, I said, glancing briefly at Min-Kyu. Doo-jun's face paled as the reality hit him. You can't do this. Min-Kyu stepped forward, hand lightly brushing my elbow, a silent reassurance. We already did, he said firmly. You're finished, Doo-jun. Every asset, every account gone. You won't hurt her anymore. As Doo-jun slumped, defeated, I felt a surge of triumph and relief. But more than that, I felt the quiet warmth of Min-Kyu's hand lingering near mine, his thumb gently brushing against my skin. My pulse quickened, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to lean into the feeling. Later that evening, as we walked back to my apartment, his arm slipped around my shoulders. You were incredible today, he murmured, pressing a soft kiss to my temple. I leaned into him, heart full. We were incredible, I said, smiling. The intimacy was gentle yet electric, a promise of more than just protection. It was the beginning of something real, something I had longed for but never believed I deserved. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that revenge had been satisfying, yes, but love, genuine, patient, protective love, was far more intoxicating. And with Min-Kyu by my side, I was ready to embrace it fully. The morning sunlight streamed through my curtains, but it couldn't compare to the warmth I felt when Min-Kyu appeared at my door. He had spent the night ensuring that Doo-jun's assets were fully frozen and legal procedures were airtight. But instead of leaving, he stayed, just standing there with that calm, steady presence that always made my chest flutter. Good morning, he said softly, a teasing edge in his tone. Sleep well? I smiled, a genuine smile I hadn't worn in years. Better than I have in a long time. Thanks to you. He stepped closer, the warmth of his body brushing mine. You don't need to thank me. I've been waiting years for this for you. My pulse quickened at his words. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the small distance between us, but a flutter of shyness made me hesitate. Min-Kyu, I whispered. He tilted his head, eyes soft and searching. Yes. I felt a shiver as his hand lightly brushed my cheek, thumb lingering. I think I want more than just your help with revenge, I admitted, voice barely audible. He smiled, that slow, knowing smile that always made my heart ache. I was hoping you'd say that, he said, lowering his forehead to mine. His breath mingled with mine, and I felt a magnetic pull that I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Our lips met in a tentative, feather-light kiss. It was sweet, gentle, but electric. My hands instinctively found his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. The intimacy, the closeness, it was overwhelming after years of heartbreak and betrayal. I've imagined this for so long, Min-Kyu murmured against my lips, his voice low and husky. I wanted to be the one to protect you, to love you, and now I finally can. I shivered, leaning into him, letting the warmth of his body envelop me. I never thought I could feel safe with someone again after him. I admitted, the confession raw and trembling. You're safe now, he said firmly, cupping my face in both hands. I'll never let anyone hurt you. Ever. The day blurred as we spent it together, side by side, talking, laughing, and holding each other close. Each touch, each brush of fingers, was a reminder that love could be gentle, protective, and intoxicating all at once. His presence was a hearth, a steady flame that chased away the chill of betrayal that had haunted me for years. Later, as evening settled, Min-Kyu pulled me onto the couch, wrapping me in his arms. You know, he whispered, pressing his lips to my temple, this is what victory feels like. Not just over him, but over all the pain. And we get to celebrate it together. I rested my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that matched my own. I think I'm finally ready to let myself feel happy again, I said softly. He smiled against my hair. Good. Because I plan to spend every day making sure you do. The night deepened, and with it, the intimacy between us grew. Gentle touches, lingering caresses, and whispered words of affection wrapped around us like a cocoon. There was no rush, only the warmth of mutual desire and the knowledge that we had each found in the other a love that was patient, protective, and fierce. As I drifted to sleep in his arms, I realized that revenge had been only the beginning. True satisfaction came from this, from the hands that held me, the lips that kissed me, and the heart that had always belonged to me, patiently waiting through years of silence. With Min-Kyu, I was whole again. The morning air carried a crisp chill, but my heart was warm, too warm to ignore. Min-Kyu had stayed overnight again, and every glance, every touch, felt electric. Our connection had deepened beyond strategy and revenge. It was intimate, unspoken, yet undeniable. "Morning," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from my face as I sipped my coffee. His hand lingered longer than necessary, and I felt a shiver of anticipation. "Morning," I replied, unable to hide the small smile tugging at my lips. "Did you sleep at all?" He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes twinkling. "Not enough." I kept thinking about last night. I felt my cheeks flush, recalling the gentle kisses and lingering touches we had shared, the way he had held me close as if I were the only person in the world. "And?" I prompted, heart racing. His smile widened, a teasing glint in his eyes. "And I don't regret a second of it." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "Yuri, you have no idea how long I've wanted this you." I swallowed hard, the tension between us thickening. "I think I've known," I whispered, letting my hand brush his chest. "But I wasn't sure you felt the same." He captured my hand, pressing it to his lips. "I've always felt the same. I just wanted to make sure you were safe first." The moment was interrupted by the sound of a news alert. Min-Kyu swiped his phone, and my heart skipped. The headline screamed, "Han Do-jun bankrupt. Hidden offshore accounts frozen by legal investigation." I glanced at him, exhilaration and vindication surging through me. It's over," I breathed. Min-Kyu's lips curved into a triumphant smile. "Over? Hardly. It's just beginning for us." He stepped closer, the heat radiating off him, and cupped my face. "We survived his lies, his betrayal, and now we get to be free. Together." I couldn't help the laughter that escaped me, the sheer relief mingling with desire. "Together," I echoed, leaning into him. He lowered his forehead to mine, our breaths mingling. "You have no idea how beautiful you are when you're fierce," he murmured. His lips brushed mine in a soft, lingering kiss that made my knees weak. We moved to the couch, hands exploring gently, teasingly, the kind of touches that made my heart race and my mind spin. "Min-Kyu," I whispered, "we have all the time in the world now." "I intend to make every second count," he said, voice low and intoxicating. His fingers threaded through my hair as our lips met again, this time deeper, more urgent. Every brush, every caress was a promise, safety, love, and a passion that had been long denied. The phone buzzed again. More news of Do-jun's public humiliation, social media ablaze with commentary on his deceit. But I didn't care. The world could burn around us. Here, in Min-Kyu's arms, I was untouchable. Later, as we sat entwined, he whispered, "I've waited my entire life for this chance to protect you, to love you fully. I won't waste a single moment." I tilted my head, capturing his lips in a soft kiss. "And I've waited too, waited to be with someone who actually sees me, not the house, not the money. You see me, Min-Kyu." He smiled against my lips, hands holding me close. "Always," he murmured. "And I'll never stop." That night, our embrace deepened, the world outside forgotten. Every touch, every whisper, was a reminder that this was ours, a love forged in fire, tempered by pain, and made stronger by the betrayal we had overcome. With Min-Kyu, I felt alive in ways I hadn't imagined possible. The past was gone, Do-jun's power evaporated, and the future stretched before us, promising love, passion, and a freedom I would never again surrender. The aftermath of Do-jun's downfall unfolded like a storm. News outlets reported his bankruptcy, social media roared with commentary, and the world finally saw the truth. Yet, for me, the greatest victory wasn't the collapse of his empire. It was the life I had reclaimed, side by side with Min-Kyu. We spent the morning walking through the city, hands intertwined, savoring the calm that had eluded me for years. Every glance from him made my heart race, and every touch reminded me that this time, I was truly safe, truly seen. "You know," he murmured, his thumb brushing the back of my hand, "watching you today, walking tall, confident, it's intoxicating." I laughed softly, leaning into him. "You're easily impressed." "No," he countered, lowering his voice to a whisper. "I'm in awe. You're remarkable, Yuri. And I've loved you for so long, quietly, waiting for the moment you could see yourself the way I always did." I stopped walking, turning to face him, my chest rising with emotion. I can feel it now, Min-Kyu. Every day, every moment I've spent fearing him, fearing betrayal, it led me here. To you. He smiled, tilting my chin upward with his fingers. His lips met mine in a slow, lingering kiss, hands sliding to my waist, pulling me closer. My fingers tangled in his hair as the warmth of his body pressed against mine, erasing years of hurt with every heartbeat. The afternoon melted into evening as we returned to my apartment. The city lights shimmered through the windows, casting a golden glow over us. Min-Kyu guided me to the couch, the heat between us building, not just from passion, but from trust, from love finally shared. "I want you to know," he whispered, lips grazing my ear, "that every touch, every kiss, every embrace is only for you. No one else." I shivered, pressing my body closer to his. "I feel the same, and I've waited a long time for this for you." His hands traced the curve of my back, sliding lower to cradle me as our lips met again, this time more urgent, more intimate. Every kiss spoke of reassurance, devotion, and desire. We explored each other slowly, deliberately, savoring the closeness we had been denied for so long. "Yuri," he murmured between kisses, "you're mine. Only mine." I gasped softly, my hands gripping his shoulders. "And you're mine, Min-Kyu. Only mine." The night unfolded in a dance of intimacy, trust, and passion. Every touch, every whisper, every embrace was a testament to survival and love. Do-jun's betrayal no longer had power over me. It had forged me, and now I was reborn not just as a woman of strength, but as a woman fully cherished. By the time we collapsed in each other's arms, hearts pounding, breath mingling, I realized that victory was sweeter than I'd imagined. Revenge had been satisfying, yes, but love, true love, was intoxicating beyond words. Min-Kyu held me close, his forehead pressed to mine, eyes reflecting the depth of his devotion. "We've reclaimed everything, Yuri including us." I smiled, tears of relief and joy streaming down my cheeks. "Yes, thus. And this time, I'm never letting go." We fell asleep entwined, a perfect union of hearts, bodies, and souls. The world outside had no claim over us anymore. Together, we had survived betrayal, reclaimed justice, and found a love that burned brighter than any pain of the past. For the first time in my life, I was complete, safe, cherished, and profoundly loved by the one who had always been my true partner.